You don't realize how fast time moves until you turn 40 and look back at 20. You see, wealth isn't about how old you are, it's about how long you've been thinking wrong. Most people reach 40 with experience, but no direction. The rich, they use their experience as fuel, not regret. The next 20 years can make you free or keep you trapped. The question is, what will you invest in, your fears or your future? Let me tell you something. Turning 40 doesn't mean it's too late. It means it's finally time to do it right. The poor think 40 is an ending. The rich know it's the beginning of compounding in money, in wisdom, in legacy. Most people slow down at 40. The rich just get started. Because when you know how to use time, every decade becomes a multiplier. Let me tell you something important. It's never too late unless you never start. I've met people who were 20 years old and already defeated because they thought they were behind. And I've met people at 50 who started building and within a decade completely transformed their financial destiny. See, wealth is not built on how early you begin, but on how seriously you begin once you decide. If you're 40 and thinking, I wish I had started sooner, well, wishing doesn't plant a seed. Starting does. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. You've gathered experiences, learned lessons, built resilience. That's not wasted time, that's training. And now, that training can turn into wealth if you're willing to move forward with wisdom instead of regret. The beauty of being 40 or beyond is that you finally understand yourself, your habits, your mistakes, your strengths, and your limits. When you were 20, you might have been full of energy, but short on direction. Now you've got perspective. And perspective is power. You know that quick money fades fast. You've seen that emotions make poor financial advisors. You've watched people chase trends, gamble their savings, or spend decades waiting for the perfect time, and you've learned the hard truth. The perfect time never comes. What matters is the next decision, not the last one. The rich don't cry over lost time. They invest the time that remains with precision and patience. When I was younger, I thought wealth belonged to the youth, to those who started early. But I learned something profound after watching men and women who built fortunes later in life. One man I knew started investing at 45 after losing everything in a failed business. He didn't complain. He didn't blame. He simply said, I've got 20 good years left. I'll make them count. He studied, saved, and stayed disciplined. By 60, he wasn't just financially free, he was mentoring others on how to do the same. The lesson? It's not time that builds wealth, it's consistent action guided by wisdom. So, if you're at that stage where you're saying, I'm too late, pause and ask yourself, too late for what? Too late to learn? Too late to grow? Too late to change your financial story? Of course not. The world is full of opportunities waiting for those who are prepared. At 40, you've got the clarity to know what doesn't work. That's an advantage the younger crowd doesn't have. You've already paid for your lessons with time and mistakes. Now use the dividends of that experience. Start with an honest financial audit. Don't sugarcoat it. Look at your debts, your spending, your savings, your income streams. Face it all. Wealth begins with awareness. Then build a plan, not a fantasy, but a real, measurable 10-year plan. Think of where you want to be by 50 or 55. Picture the life you want, not the one others told you to settle for. Break that big vision into small, consistent steps. And here's the secret. Automate your progress. Don't rely on motivation. Rely on systems. Automate your savings, your investments, your contributions. Let time and discipline do the heavy lifting. I often tell people, regret doesn't pay interest, but consistency does. Every day you delay, your dreams shrink a little. Every day you start, they expand. You don't need to sprint, you just need to move forward every single day. Whether it's $50 or $500, whether it's 30 minutes of learning or a few hours of planning, keep planting, because eventually those seeds grow into freedom. So, if you're over 40 and wondering whether it's too late, let me assure you, it's never too late to build wealth, but it can become too late to decide. Start today. Not tomorrow, not next month, today. Because the clock isn't your enemy, your hesitation is. The moment you start, you stop aging financially and start compounding intentionally. And that's how you win the second half of your financial life, not with youth, but with wisdom, discipline, and the courage to begin again. One of the greatest misunderstandings people have about wealth after 40 is thinking that the best years of earning are behind them. But let me tell you something. The best years are the ones where you finally realize what you already know is your greatest asset. At this stage in life, your experience is gold, your failures are data, and your wisdom is capital. Most people spend their first half of life learning through mistakes, through jobs, through survival. And then they throw away those lessons as if they were just scars. But the wealthy know how to turn those scars into strategy. They take what they've learned and make it pay dividends. When I was young, I worked hard, painfully hard, for very little. I thought effort was everything. But effort without leverage can keep you tired, not rich. Over the years, I discovered that the rich find ways to make their minds work for them, not just their hands. They monetize wisdom. They understand that if you've spent 20 years in an industry, raised a family, managed crises, or built a career, then you have insights worth something. People are hungry for perspective. They'll pay for experience that shortens their own learning curve. I once knew a man who spent 25 years in the corporate world, managing teams, solving problems, and navigating office politics. At 45, he was let go. Most people would have panicked. He paused and thought. Instead of rushing into another job, he started consulting for small businesses. He packaged what he'd learned, leadership, communication, productivity, and sold it as wisdom. Within 3 years, he was earning more on his own terms than he ever did under a paycheck. What changed? Not his intelligence, not his hours, just his mindset. He realized his wisdom had market value. That's the shift that builds wealth after 40. You stop selling your time and you start selling your understanding. You take what's in your head, the stories, the lessons, the know-how, and turn it into something others can use. Write a book, start a course, record your insights, teach what you've learned, mentor younger professionals who are still walking the path you've already conquered. If you do it right, they'll pay you in money, respect, or equity, all of which are wealth. You don't need to be a celebrity to teach. You just need clarity. Think about it. You've solved problems that others haven't faced yet. You've overcome setbacks that others are struggling through. That's value, but you've got to learn how to communicate it, package it, and deliver it in a way that scales. And here's the key. Don't undervalue what comes naturally to you. What's ordinary for you might be extraordinary for someone else. So many people at 40 or 50 think their only asset is their retirement fund. But that's a small piece of the puzzle. Your biggest asset is the wisdom that built that fund. You can write it, teach it, sell it, or systemize it, but whatever you do, don't bury it. Every lesson you've learned was purchased with time and pain. Don't let it sit idle. Turn it into a product, a course, a community, a mentorship, something that lives beyond you and pays you for your perspective. The truth is, money follows value, and wisdom, when applied, is the purest form of value there is. The world pays handsomely for clarity, and after 40, you've got more clarity than most. So use it, invest it, multiply it. Let your mind become your new marketplace. Because when you turn your experience into expertise, your years stop being a burden and start becoming your advantage. That's how you transform wisdom into wealth, not by starting over, but by finally cashing in on everything life has already taught you. There comes a point in life where the game of money has to change. Before 40, most of us play the game of earning. We trade time for dollars, effort for security, and labor for lifestyle. But after 40, that game starts to wear thin. You begin to realize that time is running faster and energy isn't infinite. That's when wisdom demands a shift from earning to owning. Because if you don't own something that works while you sleep, you'll spend the rest of your life awake, working. The wealthy learned this lesson early. They understood that income is only a means, not an end. You see, when most people make money, they think in terms of spending it. Better homes, better cars, better vacations. The rich think in terms of planting it. They see every dollar as a worker, a seed that must be sent out to bring back more. That's the mindset difference. The average man asks, "How much can I make?" The wealthy ask, "How much can I own that keeps making for me?" When I was younger, I met a man who told me, if all your income stops when you stop showing up, you don't own your life, your job does. At first I brushed it off, but years later, I realized the truth. I was earning well, but I wasn't free. Every month depended on my next effort, my next project, my next sale. I was working harder, but not getting closer to freedom. That's when I made the shift from chasing income to building ownership. Now, what does ownership mean? It's not just real estate or stock portfolios, though those are good starts. Ownership means control. Control over your time, your decisions, and your cash flow. When you own something that pays you, whether you're working or not, a business, a property, a dividend stock, or even a digital product, you begin to escape the treadmill of endless effort. You move from being an operator to being an investor in your own future. But it takes discipline. You've got to start setting aside a portion of every paycheck, not for spending, but for buying assets. Maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 20%. But whatever it is, make it sacred. The average person spends their extra income on things that rust, rot, or fade. The wealthy spend theirs on things that produce, things that appreciate, that multiply. Every time you get paid, ask yourself, how much of this will still pay me 10 years from now? If the answer is none, you're on the wrong track. And remember, ownership starts with knowledge. Don't scatter your focus. Study one wealth vehicle. Maybe it's real estate. Maybe it's the stock market. Maybe it's building a small business, and master it. Wealth isn't about dabbling, it's about depth. The rich don't chase trends, they master principles. They find something that works and scale it with precision. Here's the truth, earning gives you comfort, but owning gives you freedom. Earning gives you the next meal, but owning gives you the next generation's security. After 40, the goal is no longer to work harder, it's to make your money work smarter. Because every hour you trade for money is an hour you'll never get back. But every dollar you invest in ownership is a soldier fighting for your future. So make the shift. Use your earnings as the bridge to freedom, not the pillow for comfort. Don't just make money, start making money move. Because wealth isn't measured by how much you earn, It's measured by how much keeps coming in when you stop showing up. By the time you reach 40, you've probably worked decades to build something. Your savings, your career, maybe even a small business or a few investments. But here's what separates the wealthy from the rest. They know that the first rule of wealth isn't growth, it's protection. Because if you can't keep what you earn, you'll spend your life rebuilding what you've already built. The poor and middle class focus on making more. The wealthy focus first on not losing what they already have. When you're young, taking big risks can make sense. You've got time to recover. But after 40, time becomes more valuable than money. You can rebuild money, but you can't rebuild time. And that's why financial defense becomes the foundation for everything else. You can't multiply wealth if your foundation is shaky. If one unexpected event, an illness, a job loss, a market downturn, can wipe out years of progress, then you're not building wealth, you're gambling with it. I remember meeting a man in his mid-40s who had built a thriving business. He was earning 6 figures, had investments in real estate, and was feeling confident. But one year, he lost almost everything, not because he wasn't smart, but because he didn't have a defense. A lawsuit hit, insurance was lacking, and he was too exposed in one market. That's when I learned, it's not the storms that destroy you, it's failing to prepare for them. Wealthy people think like architects. Before they build higher, they strengthen the base. They make sure their wealth can survive pressure, not just produce profit. That's why they keep cash reserves, 6 months, even a year of living expenses tucked away. Not because they plan to use it, but because security gives them confidence, and confidence creates better decisions. When you're desperate, you make emotional moves. When you're prepared, you make strategic ones. Then comes diversification. Never let all your money depend on one industry, one investment, or one person. Spread your risk. Real estate, stocks, business equity, even cash-flowing side ventures. The goal isn't to be scattered, but to be safe. If one door closes, another should still be open. The rich build multiple income pillars so that if one cracks, the house still stands. And don't forget protection in its purest form, insurance. It may not sound exciting, but it's the quiet guardian of wealth. Insure your health, your income, your assets, your life. The rich understand that protection isn't an expense, it's an investment in peace of mind. They don't see it as losing money, they see it as preserving their freedom. Because here's the truth, wealth isn't just about multiplication, it's about endurance. It's about staying in the game long enough for compounding to do its magic. You can't compound if you're constantly restarting from zero. Protect your wealth so it can protect you. At this stage in life, one financial mistake can set you back a decade. So build your defenses first. The emergency fund, the insurance, the diversification. Once your fortress is secure, then go chase expansion. Because if you guard your wealth before you grow it, you won't just get rich, you'll stay rich. When you reach 40, something powerful happens. You begin to see patterns. You've worked long enough to know what works and what doesn't. You've seen people rise, fall, and rise again. And if you're wise, you realize that the greatest investment you can make from this point forward isn't in the stock market or real estate, it's in your mind. Because money can be lost, but skill can rebuild it. That's why the wealthy keep learning long after others stop. Most people slow down after 40. They think learning is for the young, that their time for growth is past. But that's the very mindset that keeps people average. The rich know that learning compounds just like money does. Every hour you spend sharpening your skills adds to your earning power. Every book, every seminar, every mentorship conversation, it all adds another layer of wisdom that no one can tax, steal, or deflate. I've met people in their 40s who told me, it's too late for me to start something new. And I'd say, it's too late only if you refuse to start. Think about it. If you live another 40 years, that's 14,600 days left to learn, build, and grow. You could become a master in any field by dedicating one focused hour a day. The problem isn't time, it's direction. When I was in my early 40s, I realized that what separated me from the people I admired wasn't intelligence. It was skill. They had learned how to lead, how to sell, how to negotiate, how to communicate, and those weren't talents they were born with. They were learned, refined, and applied over time. So I made a decision to study success the way a scientist studies nature, to spend at least an hour each day learning something that could move me forward. And that single habit changed everything. Because after 40, you have something younger people don't: context. You've lived enough to understand what knowledge actually matters. You can filter faster. You can connect dots others can't see. So instead of trying to learn everything, focus on learning the right things: financial literacy, leadership, business systems, negotiation, digital leverage. The skills that multiply money and magnify influence. Those are the ones that pay dividends long after the paycheck stops. And here's the key. Don't just learn for the sake of knowing. Learn for the sake of earning and serving. Turn your expertise into value. Maybe you've spent 20 years in your industry. Teach it. Write about it. Consult others in it. Turn your experience into income. The world doesn't just pay for labor anymore. It pays for wisdom, clarity, and leadership. Attend workshops, join masterminds, or find a mentor who's doing what you want to do next. Never be the smartest person in the room. If you are, you're in the wrong room. Surround yourself with those who stretch your thinking, challenge your comfort, and raise your standards. The beautiful thing about investing in skills is that the returns never end. A skill once learned can serve you for decades. It can open doors you never thought existed, create income streams you never imagined, and give you confidence no market crash can shake. So if you want to grow rich after 40, don't just invest in assets that sit in your bank. Invest in the assets that sit in your mind. Because knowledge turns into judgment, judgment turns into decisions, and decisions turn into wealth. The more you learn, the more you earn, and the more you become the kind of person wealth is drawn to. You know, a lot of people spend their whole lives chasing a number, a net worth goal, a bank balance, a figure that they think will finally mean I've made it. But let me tell you something. Wealth isn't about numbers on a statement. It's about freedom in your lifestyle. It's not how much you have, it's how much you can use without working. True wealth is the ability to wake up and know that money is flowing toward you, even when you're not chasing it. See, when you're young, it's fine to trade your time for money. You've got energy, you're building experience, and you're learning the ropes. But by 40, it's time to start building systems that make money while you rest. That's where real financial freedom begins. When your income isn't dependent on whether or not you show up. The goal isn't to work for money forever. It's to have money working for you. When I first started learning about wealth, I met a man who told me something I never forgot. He said, if your income stops, when you stop, you're not rich, you're just busy. And he was right. I knew people making 6 figures a year, but the moment they stopped working, everything stopped. The bills, the mortgage, the lifestyle. That's not freedom, that's a golden cage. The wealthy understand that cash flow, steady, consistent, reliable income is the heartbeat of wealth. It's what buys peace of mind. You can have $1 million in assets, but if it doesn't produce anything, you're just asset rich and lifestyle poor. On the other hand, if you have $10,000 a month flowing in without lifting a finger, you've got freedom. You've got options. So how do you build that kind of income? You start by shifting from consumer to creator, from earner to owner. Invest in things that pay you regularly. Real estate that brings rental income. Stocks that pay dividends. Businesses that create profits. Or digital products that earn royalties. I remember when I bought my first piece of rental property. It wasn't big, but every month that rent check reminded me my money was working while I was speaking, teaching, or resting. That's when I realized the rich don't work harder, they make their money work harder. And here's something important. Once you build a cash flow source, don't spend it all. Reinvest part of it. Use the return from one investment to create another. That's how wealth multiplies, not by luck, but by disciplined reinvestment. The poor spend their earnings, the rich reinvest their earnings. Every dollar that flows in should have a job to bring back friends. Automation is your best ally in this process. Set up systems that collect payments, reinvest profits, and grow on their own. That's how you remove emotion from money and let discipline do the heavy lifting. You can't manage everything manually forever, but systems never get tired, distracted, or afraid. Remember, the goal isn't just to have assets, it's to have assets that produce. You don't need more trophies on your balance sheet, you need cash flow in your bank account. Because net worth might impress people, but cash flow feeds your family, funds your freedom, and fuels your future. So build wisely. Let every dollar you earn go out into the world and come back with more. That's the quiet secret of the rich. They don't just own wealth, they own time. And that, my friend, is the ultimate return on investment. You know, we spend so much of our lives chasing numbers, trying to add a zero here, build a business there, and secure a future for ourselves. But let me tell you something. The ultimate return on investment isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in impact. The greatest wealth isn't what you keep, it's what you leave behind. Because at the end of the day, money disappears, possessions fade, but the influence you create, that lives on. I've seen it time and time again. People who accumulate fortunes but die with no one remembering how they made it, only that they had it. That's not success. True wealth isn't just financial, it's generational. It's about taking the fruits of your labor and planting seeds for others to harvest. You see, anyone can make a living, but only a few make a legacy. When you reach your 40s and beyond, something starts to shift. The race for accumulation slows down, and the question of meaning begins to rise. You start asking, what have I built that will outlive me? That's when the wealthy separate themselves, not by how much they own, but by how much they give, how much they teach, and how much they inspire. I remember a mentor of mine who built an incredible company. By the time he was 60, he could have retired comfortably, but he didn't. He told me, I've made enough for me, now I want to make enough to matter. He started scholarships, mentored entrepreneurs, and created a family trust that required every member of his family to read a set of books on finance, character, and contribution before they received anything. He wasn't just leaving money, he was leaving wisdom. That's the kind of legacy that doesn't die. If you truly want to build generational wealth, start thinking beyond accumulation. Invest in people. Teach your children, not just the privilege of wealth, but the principles that create it. Let them understand that money without values becomes a burden, not a blessing. Show them how to think, how to work, how to serve. Because you can give your kids a fortune, or you can give them the formula, and only one will last forever. Set up systems that ensure your wealth keeps doing good long after you're gone. Trusts, charitable foundations, scholarships, or even mentorship programs. But don't wait until you're gone to start it. Live your legacy now. Build it while you breathe. Because the most powerful legacies don't begin with a will, they begin with a way of living. When people see how you live, how you handle challenges, how you create and contribute, that's what imprints their hearts. See, the rich understand something simple. Money is just a tool, but the use of it defines the man. When you're gone, no one will remember the size of your house or the brand of your car. They'll remember how you made them feel, what you built that served others, and the wisdom you passed on. So make it count. Build wealth that breathes beyond you. Let your success inspire others to rise. Let your example teach others how to live well, give well, and grow well. Because the ultimate return on investment isn't in your lifetime earnings, it's in the legacy that keeps earning long after you're gone. That, my friend, is when wealth becomes eternal. You know, I've met a lot of hardworking people in my life, disciplined, driven, determined. They wake up early, stay up late, and still end the month wondering where all the money went. They're not lazy, they're not careless, they're just manual. They run their lives like a factory from the 1800s, when the world has moved into automation. The truth is, wealth is not built by effort alone, it's built by design. The rich don't rely on willpower, they rely on systems. They don't leave success to emotion, they build processes that run even when they're tired. I remember when I was younger, I tried to keep everything in my head, my goals, my bills, my plans, my habits. But the mind is not meant to store, it's meant to create. Once I learned to build systems that took care of the basics, I freed up my mind for bigger thinking. You see, the wealthy understand something most people never do. If it can be automated, it should be. Because every time you have to remember to save, to invest, to plan, you're relying on emotion, not structure. And emotion is a poor financial advisor. Here's what separates the wealthy from the worried. The rich automate their success. The poor manually repeat their struggle. One group lets their systems work while they rest. The other must always work to make things work. I've seen people automate their savings, their investments, their debt payments, and within years, their finances looked effortless. Why? Because systems remove hesitation. You don't have to feel motivated to do the right thing when it's already happening automatically. Wealthy people build systems that handle routine so they can focus on opportunity. They let technology do the remembering, the tracking, the transferring, and they focus on strategy. If your phone can remind you of a meeting, it can also remind you of your goals. If your bank can automate a payment, it can also automate wealth creation. The difference between a person constantly chasing money and one who quietly builds wealth is the quality of their systems. I once worked with a man who made a good income but was always stressed. Every month, he'd juggle payments, forget to save, and panic during tax season. I told him, you don't have a money problem, you have a system problem. We set up automatic transfers, 10% to savings, 10% to investments, bills on auto pay, and a weekly review to check his progress. Within 6 months, he told me something powerful. I feel rich, not because I have more, but because I finally have control. That's what systems give you. Peace of mind, consistency, and leverage. And don't think systems only apply to money. They apply to everything. Health, productivity, even relationships. Schedule your workouts. Plan your reading. Automate reminders for birthdays, gratitude, and follow-ups. Structure creates freedom. It's not about becoming robotic. It's about creating enough order so you can live creatively. So, If you want to build real wealth after 40, stop managing everything emotionally. Build systems that carry your habits even when life gets heavy. Let automation replace hesitation. Let process replace pressure. Because stress may give you urgency, but systems will give you freedom. The goal isn't to work harder, it's to design a life that works for you. When your systems are right, wealth flows naturally. When they're missing, every step feels like a battle. So, build a system, set it once, and let it run while you rest. Because true success isn't about how much effort you give, it's about how much design you've built into your life. You know, it's an interesting thing. Most people spend their whole lives waiting for permission to rest. They call it retirement. They say, one day, when I'm 65, I'll finally relax. I'll finally enjoy life. But here's what the wealthy understand. Retirement isn't about an age, it's about income. The rich don't wait for a birthday to be free. They design their finances so that money works for them long before the calendar says they can stop working. You can retire at 40, 50, or 35 if your passive income covers your expenses. Freedom isn't scheduled, it's engineered. When I was younger, I met a man who said, I'm working hard so that when I'm 65, I can live the good life. And I thought, what if you don't make it to 65? What if your best years, your strongest, healthiest, most creative years are spent only preparing to live instead of actually living? Wealthy people flip that equation. They don't wait for someday. They build systems that pay them every month, whether they show up or not. Because real wealth isn't measured in accumulation. It's measured in continuation. The poor and middle class focus on the pile, how much money they can save, how much sits in the account. The wealthy focus on the pipeline, how much flows in every month without their direct effort. That's the difference between saving for retirement and creating financial freedom. Savings can run out. Cash flow doesn't, if you build it right. If you look closely, every rich person has some form of recurring income. Real estate rents, stock dividends, business royalties, digital assets, or ownership stakes. They've created something that continues to pay them even when they're not present. And that's what you want. Not a finish line, but a system of flow. You want to be able to say, if I stop working today, my money still shows up next week. I remember when I started studying wealthy people, I noticed they all knew their freedom number. That's the amount of money they needed every month to live comfortably without working for it. They designed everything around that number. And once their investments, properties, or businesses reached that level of cash flow, they were free. They didn't quit working. They just stopped needing to. That's a different kind of peace. Not the peace of escape, but the peace of control. Now, here's the truth. If you don't know your freedom number, you'll never hit it. Most people are running a race with no finish line. So sit down, calculate what it takes to cover your monthly living, your rent or mortgage, food, transportation, leisure, and make that your target. Then design assets that create it. And don't chase trends, build streams that are real, reliable, and renewable. It might start small, a rental unit bringing in $500 a month, a small business earning $1,000 in profit, or dividends paying you $200 quarterly. But here's the magic. Every stream you create moves you closer to independence. Every dollar that arrives without your time attached is a vote for freedom. Keep reinvesting those dollars until the flow becomes a flood. See, the goal isn't to retire from work, it's to retire from worry. To reach that place where you work because you want to, not because you have to asterisk. That's when you know you've made it, when your cash flow covers your life flow. So, Stop asking, when can I retire? And start asking, when will my money start working harder than I do? Because the day your income outpaces your effort, that's the day you're truly free. One of the most powerful lessons I ever learned about wealth came not from a book, not from a mentor, but from a mistake. You see, every dollar you lose in life, if you pay attention, becomes a seed of wisdom. The tragedy is, most people lose money and then lose the lesson too. They bury both. But the rich, they treat experience like compound interest. They reinvest every insight, every failure, every bit of hard-earned wisdom, and that's why their wealth accelerates. Because knowledge, when used right, compounds faster than capital ever could. At 40, 50, or 60, you've probably had your share of wins and losses. You've tried things that didn't work. You've trusted people you shouldn't have. You've made emotional decisions when you should have made strategic ones. But if you take the time to extract the lesson, not the emotion, those mistakes become your most profitable investments. Most people are afraid of failure, but failure is only expensive if you ignore the invoice of wisdom it leaves behind. I remember early in my journey, I lost a deal that I thought would change my life. I was frustrated. I blamed circumstances, the market, the timing, until I realized the problem was my lack of preparation. I didn't understand what I was getting into. I didn't study enough, didn't ask the right questions, and didn't track the risk. That experience cost me thousands, but it taught me millions. Because once I learned how to prepare, I never made that mistake again. The wealthy operate like scientists. Every experiment, every result, good or bad, goes into the data. They review what worked, what didn't, and why. And then they adjust. That's how they stay ahead. Poor thinkers repeat their mistakes because they rush from failure to failure without reflection. The rich pause, analyze, and convert failure into formula. Reflection turns pain into profit. If you want to accelerate your financial growth after 40, start keeping a wealth journal. Write down your financial decisions, why you made them, what you expected, and what actually happened. Track every investment, every purchase, every success, and every setback. Because if you can measure your behavior, you can manage your results. I promise you, the habit of reflection is worth more than any single stock pick or business tip. And don't just review what went wrong, also study what went right. Why did that deal work? What pattern of thinking, what discipline, what preparation made it succeed? Because when you understand your own success formula, you can repeat it intentionally, not accidentally. Then, build systems from your lessons. If you overspent, create an automatic budgeting system. If you made an emotional investment, write a checklist to use before saying yes again. Systems protect you from your old self. They turn memory into mastery. Remember this, money can be lost and regained, but wisdom once earned becomes permanent capital. And unlike money, it can't be taxed, stolen, or inflated away. So don't just grow your portfolio, grow your perspective. If you make reflection a habit, your wealth will no longer depend on the markets or the economy. It will depend on your ability to learn, adapt, and improve. Because wisdom is the one investment that pays for life and the dividends never stop. One of the most misunderstood ideas in wealth building is the word diversification. People throw it around like a magic spell, as if spreading your money everywhere guarantees safety. But let me tell you, diversification without discipline isn't protection, it's confusion. I've seen people lose more money trying to play it safe than those who took focused, educated risks. Why? Because they didn't understand why they were investing where they were. They scattered instead of structured. The poor diversify emotionally, the rich diversify strategically. Now, let's be clear. Diversification is a powerful principle when done with purpose. It's not about owning a little bit of everything, it's about protecting your foundation while positioning for growth. Think of it like a farm. You don't plant only one crop, because if disease or drought hits, you lose everything. But you also don't plant 50 crops at once, because you'll spread yourself too thin to manage any of them well. Smart diversification means balancing risk with reason. After 40, this principle becomes even more vital. You're no longer in the stage of reckless experimentation. You're in the stage of strategic preservation and expansion. You want your money to grow, yes, but you also want to make sure you can sleep at night. That means balancing your portfolio across different assets. Some that bring you steady income, others that offer growth, and a few that provide long-term security. When I started investing, I made the mistake of putting everything into one opportunity because it looked promising. I was young and eager, and that deal went south faster than I could blink. It taught me that enthusiasm without structure is expensive. From that moment on, I learned to separate emotion from allocation. You can be excited about an idea, but you must stay disciplined in your strategy. The wealthy think like architects. Every investment fits into a design. Property for stability, equities for growth, business for control, and perhaps some cash flow assets for liquidity. Each plays a role, none stands alone. They rebalance, review, and adjust. They don't chase the hottest trend, they strengthen the foundation first. Because it's not what you make, it's what you keep that counts, and keeping requires structure. You see, money flows toward clarity and flees from confusion. If your financial life is scattered, 5 different side hustles, untracked investments, and unplanned spending, your wealth can't grow consistently. But if you operate from a plan, with every dollar having a purpose, you build something sustainable. The poor look for the next opportunity. The rich build from the last one. So take time each year to rebalance your portfolio. Look at what's grown, what's lagged, and what no longer fits your vision. Remove emotional attachments to old investments that no longer serve you. Remember, it's not betrayal to sell, it's discipline to realign. Diversification is not a way to avoid risk. It's a way to manage it. True wealth builders don't fear volatility. They plan for it. They know that security doesn't come from hiding, but from understanding. So if you want to grow your wealth after 40, don't chase every shiny thing that promises returns. Build your portfolio like a fortress, solid, layered, and balanced. Because when the winds of uncertainty blow, and they always do, it's not the biggest fortune that survives, but the best structured one. There's a quiet truth that most people discover too late in life. Money alone doesn't bring peace. It can buy comfort, yes. It can buy choices, absolutely. But comfort without meaning is emptiness in disguise. I've met people with millions in the bank and misery in their hearts. They climbed the financial mountain only to realize they brought no joy with them to the summit. Wealth without purpose becomes pressure, a burden you carry instead of a blessing you share. You see, money is a tool, not a master. It takes on the character of the person who holds it. In the hands of the wise, it builds. In the hands of the fearful, it enslaves. The rich who stay rich, not just financially, but emotionally, understand this principle deeply. They build wealth to serve a purpose greater than themselves. That's what keeps their energy alive, long after the numbers in their accounts stop impressing them. I remember when I started making money for the first time. Oh, I thought I was unstoppable. I was buying suits, traveling first class, and thinking, now this is success. But after the thrill faded, I felt something strange, a kind of emptiness. The money was there, but the meaning wasn't. Then one day, I asked myself, what's this all for? That question changed my direction. I realized money was never meant to be the goal. It was meant to be a vehicle, a means to create freedom, serve others, and express my best self. Once I tied wealth to purpose, everything changed. My peace grew faster than my bank account. That's what you must discover, your why. Why do you want financial freedom? Why do you want abundance? Is it to buy more things or to buy back your time? Is it to look successful or to make a difference? Because let me tell you, your why determines whether money becomes your servant or your master. When wealth is driven by pressure, the pressure to keep up, to impress, to prove, it burns you out. You start chasing numbers without knowing why, and the chase never ends. But when wealth is driven by purpose, the desire to build, to give, to grow, you feel fulfilled long before the fortune arrives. That's the difference between people who make money and people who enjoy it. So here's a challenge. Before you set your next financial goal, write down why it matters. What does this goal give you that you don't already have? Freedom, time, contribution, growth. Get specific. Because clarity creates calm, and calm is the soil in which wealth truly grows. When every dollar you earn has a mission, it carries power. You'll stop wasting money on things that don't align with your purpose. You'll start investing in what truly matters, your freedom, your growth, your family, your legacy. You'll no longer wake up feeling the pressure to chase because you'll be pulled forward by vision. Remember, wealth is not just about having more, it's about becoming more. And the moment you align your money with your meaning, every dollar starts working for your happiness, not against it. Because at the end of the day, the richest people are not those with the most money, but those with the clearest purpose for it. As we come to a close today, I want you to remember something simple yet powerful. Wealth is not built in your hands first, it's built in your mind. The real transformation doesn't begin when the money comes in, it begins when your thinking changes. Because the same person who mismanages $100 will mismanage 100,000. But the one who learns to handle little with wisdom will one day handle much with grace. You see, wealth is not a sprint, it's a steady climb. And the climb after 40, that's not a disadvantage, that's your greatest advantage. You've lived enough to know what truly matters. You've made mistakes that taught you lessons no book could ever teach. You've seen what happens when you act without purpose, and you've tasted the peace that comes from acting with clarity. That's your leverage. That's your wealth of wisdom. Use it. From this day forward, make a commitment not to get rich quick, but to get rich right. Start with what you have. Build from where you stand. You don't need to be young, lucky, or perfect. You just need to be willing to plan, willing to persist, willing to grow. Because the truth is, life doesn't get easier, you get wiser. And wisdom, when combined with action, creates miracles. So, when you go home tonight, sit down and write a new financial vision, not a dream, a plan. Look 10 years ahead and ask yourself, what kind of freedom do I want to live with? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? Then, reverse engineer your life from that vision. Automate your savings, multiply your skills, invest in what grows, your mind, your assets, your relationships. Let your money serve your values, not your vanity. And above all, stay hungry, not desperate, but determined. Stay curious, because learning is the oxygen of wealth. Stay humble, because ego has bankrupted more people than bad markets ever have. This is your time, my friend. Don't wait for the perfect season. The perfect season is the one you decide to begin. Wealth will not come because you wish for it. It will come because you work for it, grow into it, and become the person capable of handling it. So start today, because the next decade is waiting for your decision.